Today on Locked On Red Wings, what is Amadeus Lombardi's timeline to make the Detroit Red Wings as he's set to make his pro debut in Grand Rapids on Friday? Also, when will Detroit have their next 100-point player?
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. I am a podcast producer for the daily JAWWJ News Radio podcast. Scotty's the host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a freelance journalist for the Detroit News. And quick reminder, guys, before we get into the episode, Robbie Fabry stick giveaway, sitting right here behind me. You have until, we're going to record the episode on 4/20. Super funny. And so make sure you get your submission into the giveaway and you can do that by just subscribing to our YouTube channel, screenshotting some proof, and then you can DM that proof to us in Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, as well as just you can reply in one of the threads on Facebook or Twitter as well. So any of those places. I have it pinned as our tweet on Twitter at LO_Red Wings. So there's tons of ways you can enter. You just got to subscribe and then somehow send us proof. Lots of ways to do that. Getting into things, Scotty. Our last off day of the season, buddy. First of all, how's that feel before we get into nothing but off days?
It's wild. It's wild, man. Yeah, last game preview for what, 5 months?
Don't know how to feel. Part of me is like excited that the season's ending because then we can do off-season stuff. And part of me is dreading the season ending because then
the off-season will be fun. Like, we have playoffs, which are, hockey playoffs, in my opinion, are the best playoffs in sports. So we'll have that to kind of talk about, even though the Red Wings aren't a part of it. And obviously there's a ton of like prospect profiles leading up to the draft, and free agency will be super fun. Like, it'll be really fun for the first like half of the offseason. And then the post free agency, post draft, training camp's still 4 weeks away, but the off season stuff is all over. That like August is when it gets brutal, but like everything up until then is still going to be really fun. And this is a really important off season for the Wings.
It's a vital off season, I would argue, for where this rebuild is going. And we have a ton of stuff planned already for next week. I've been putting feelers out there. I don't want to say who yet because anything can happen to interviews before they happen, but we've booked 3 really exciting interviews for you guys next week. Fan favorite people in the universe. It's a very broad way of putting it.
Favorite people in the universe. Everybody. There you go.
In the Red Wings fandom. But enough stalling. Let's get right into it. We only have 30 minutes, and we got a few topics to get to, Scotty. Amadeus Lombardi finished his season in the OHL with the 3rd most points out of anyone in the OHL. 102 points in 67 games, 45 goals, and 57 assists, only behind Matthew Maggio and Ty Voigt of the Sarnia Sting and Windsor Spitfires for the league lead. And he only trailed them by, if I'm doing my math right here, 9 points and 3 points respectively. So it was a tight race all the way down to the wire, but Amadeus Lombardi with the Flint Firebirds led the way. And he's been a name that has come up time and time again. And I think what stood out to us immediately with Amadeus Lombardi is how quickly a 4th-round pick from this draft, 113th overall, signed a 3-year entry-level contract. You don't see that very often. William Wallander, who was a 2nd-round pick from, was it Moritz Seider's draft in 2019? It might have been Raymond's draft in 2020. I might be confused on that. Just signed his ELC this last month.
Mm-hmm.
Amadeus Lombardi signed his ELC just months after. So that immediately stood out to us to how high this organization values him. And he went out there and exploded production-wise in the OHL. And he has been assigned to the Grand Rapids Griffins. He's going to make his pro debut as the Grand Rapids Griffins wrap up their season this weekend. I think a Friday and a Saturday game, doubleheader, one against the Wolves and one against the... I can't remember the other team. But regardless, he's going to be playing in the final 2 games, making his pro debut. So that's going to be something to definitely keep their eye on. But the question becomes, Scotty, how, or better put, what is the timeline on this 4th round pick to maybe wearing the winged wheel?
Yeah, well, I think he obviously and rightfully picked up a lot of steam within this fan base this season just because of the incredible year that he put up down there in Flint. And yeah, I don't think it's crazy to think that he gets at a minimum like an Edvinson or Casper treatment next year. Like I don't think that that's. I would even say that. Oh, I don't know how bullish I'm feeling. Like I would even say that might even be like the bar. Like dare I say the expectation that he'll get a few games, like a cup of coffee at the NHL level at some point next season. Now, if the team stays relatively healthy and they're in the thick of it and they're playing competitive hockey all year, then maybe the opportunity for that is going to be few and far between, and maybe that chance doesn't open up for him. But I don't think it's ridiculous for him to be knocking on the door next season.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that stuck out to scouts with Lombardi is his playmaking ability. And obviously you saw that this year. He had 57 assists. The year prior, even though in the same amount of games played, he only had 59 points. 41 of those were assists. But the thing that developed this year that was not there in previous years was the finishing ability, the goal scoring. And this is where it gets really tough when evaluating talent, right? Because the OHL is very different than what William Wallander was playing over in the SHL. You're talking about junior hockey in North America compared to professional hockey in Sweden. And I mean, obviously 2 very different positions that they're both playing, but for the sake of the argument, stick with me here. You could even, if you want to say Marco Kasper over in Sweden, let's go with that comparison instead. He put up impressive numbers at a non-professional level. The juniors is still amateur hockey. But he blew it up. He lit it up. But Sebastian Cossa also lit up the OHL as a goalie and then had to go to the ECHL to develop 1 year before that. Mickey Redmond thinks that Amadeus Lombardi could make the NHL as soon as next year. And I'm not ruling it out. I think this kid has a ton of talent. Again, I go back to the fact that they signed him to an ELC almost immediately after he was drafted in the 4th round as a huge indicator that they think this kid is the real deal. But at the same time, you have to wonder how much of this skill and talent is going to immediately translate to the NHL level, or the AHL level, rather, right off the bat, these last 2 games and next season. I think there will be an adjustment period. I don't want to rule out, again, feeling bullish like you, I don't want to rule out him making the team right out of camp next season if, like, what we've seen in the OHL is real. And this team needs a legitimate goal scorer and playmaker in the top 6 role, because that's his ceiling, is like top 6, just domination in the offensive zone. Just he seems like a possession puck kind of guy. And that's what the Red Wings need. But at the same time, the logic in the back of my head goes, okay, he probably is going to need an adjustment period, right? Like that's just, I think the minimum, like you said, I think what you said was the bullish minimum is a guaranteed 9 games stint. I think that is, or what you said, the bullish maximum, rather. Sorry, I don't want to put words in your mouth. For me, is the minimum. That's the minimum. 9 games next year. I think we see him because he has been unreal, and I think they want to give him a shot.
Yeah, I always on April 12th when we're recording this, like I want to look at you and be like, Brian, he's not making the team out of camp. Let's take a deep breath. But then I have a flashback.
Yeah.
I have a flashback to when it was Nolan and I, and Nolan in February said, hey man, this upcoming fall, Lucas Raymond's making the team out of camp. And I went, you are out of your mind, dude. And then sure enough, not only did he make the team out of camp, he was in a top 6 rolling on the top line like within a week. So I don't want to be like all in on the, all right, let's kind of pump the brakes a little bit, just because and Lucas Raymond was a number 4 overall pick, and Lombardi was a 4th rounder. Like it's a little different for sure. I'm not trying to compare them exactly. But we have seen so often just how much on April 12th. No, I'm not going to say that, but we have seen how much weight like off season and training camp and preseason really holds for kind of the fringe players on this team over the last 2 years.
Yeah. And you make a great point in drawing that comparison. In all fairness, that Lucas Raymond was 4th overall and Amadeus Lombardi was 4th round.
Right.
But I just keep going back to the fact that they signed into that ELC so fast that
Yeah,
it just
it's something to notice for sure, like without a
yeah.
doubt.
And I mean, I completely will admit I'm getting ahead of myself. I will admit that, but this kid just makes me so pumped. He gets me so hyped. Like, is there a Red Wings prospect right now that is getting more hype than Amadeus Lombardi? And I
Yeah,
mean, part of it
probably
is
not.
coverage, right? I mean, it's Flint. It's down the road
Yeah,
from
probably not.
from Detroit. But I feel like we've gotten more Amadeus Lombardi coverage this season than we got of 6th overall pick. Or I'm sorry, 8th overall pick. No, 6th overall pick. I'm getting
Yeah,
the
you're
years
right.
confused. Marco Casper. And then, or even Simon Edvinsson, who's down the road in Grand Rapids, who was expected to make the team out of camp.
Yeah, I mean, for him, like it's that's probably some forward bias versus a D man when
Sure,
it comes
that's
to
fair.
Edmonton, I'd imagine. But still, I mean, Casper is like literally played at the NHL level this year, and I would agree with you that Lombardi has gotten a lot more hype just within the fan base and the community than
Yeah.
probably any other prospect in the org. Yeah.
Like I said, I will completely admit that I'm probably getting a little bit ahead of myself, but he's just been so electric that I'm leaning in. This is really unprofessional of me, but I'm leaning into my fandom right now and just saying I want this kid to make the team out of camp. He looks like an electric
Well,
factory.
we got to see what happens with the, with the offseason too, right? I mean, if they go out there and obviously the draft is not going to immediately affect what the NHL team looks like this fall, but if they go into if they make some trades, add some more forward depth, add some center depth, specifically free agency, obviously, like if they add a ton of depth, then like it's going to be hard to crack for them. But we'll see. We'll see. This is such, as you said earlier, such a vital offseason already. And then when you add in that not only Lombardi, but there's like a handful of prospects that we've been talking about for years that are finally like kind of right there knocking on the door.
Absolutely. And then so we got to get to a quick break. We're over already, and that's my fault. I won't shut up. But Red Wings fans aren't the only ones who are hyped up about him. The coaches poll came out from the OHL, and Amadeus Lombardi's up there with pretty much half the awards. But first, I got to talk to you guys today about Built Bar. If you're looking for a delicious snack but don't want all the sugar and calories, then you need the best tasting protein bar ever. Built. You got to try this. I will back them up on that claim as well. I just finished my box the other day, Scotty. I'm really depressed. We only make trips to Sam's Club once a month. So I got to wait for the calendar to turn to get me my 13-bar box because that brownie batter and churro was delicious. Puffs are amazing. If you're like me and you want to make healthier snack choices, but you don't want to compromise on taste, I've got just a thing for you. Built Bars and Built Puffs, especially the Puffs, guys. Really good. Built Bars are healthy and taste amazing. Seriously, they taste so good. You won't think that they're good for you. You got to try this. What makes Built Bars so good? We've said it a million times. They're covered in 100% real chocolate. It just makes them taste so good. In fact, not only are they covered in 100% real chocolate, the puffs are marshmallow. Yet at the same time, they get away with only being 130 calories with 4 grams of sugar and 17 grams of protein. I'm not sure that there isn't wizardry involved because how is it possible that something can taste so sweet, so delicious, yet only have 4 grams of sugar in it? It doesn't make sense. I call shenanigans. Doesn't make sense. It's got to be magic. Got to be. You can check them out at Walmart or Sam's Club. You can get 4-bar boxes at Walmart. You can get a 13-bar box, like I was just saying, at Sam's Club. Or as always, you can go to built.com and get all of their delicious flavors from there. So make sure you check out Walmart, Built Bar, or Sam's Club to get yourself some Built Bars. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. We're talking about Amadeus Lombardi, Scotty, and I teased before the break that you and I aren't the only ones who are uber hyped about what Amadeus Lombardi brings to the table. The OHL coaches poll came out this last week, and it looked very favorable on Amadeus Lombardi.
Sure
He
did.
ranked first in the Western Conference, according to coaches, as the smartest player in the OHL over Shane Wright, who was number 2 in the Western Conference. I got to make sure I keep adding that in there. The coaches voted him smarter than Shane Wright.
They did.
Shane Wright was the assumed first overall pick this last year. He fell to what, 4th, 5th, something like that?
3 or 4, yeah.
Wherever the Kraken ended up picking. He was also voted the second best playmaker in the Western Conference, as well as, I know he has one more in here, the second best stick handler in the Western Conference, between Ty Voigt on that one and behind Ty Voigt on the best playmaker one. So he is just to recap, and I'll say it more clearly now, the second best playmaker in the Western Conference, the second best stick handler in the Western Conference, and the smartest player in the Western Conference of the OHL. So I'm sorry if I get a little bit excited when I read that kind of stuff out of the mouths of the OHL coaches themselves when it comes to a 4th round pick, but I am excited for Amadeus Lombardi. That is all I got to say, man. I am excited to see what he can do with these last 2 games in Grand Rapids and what he can do at training camp.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think even, assuming he doesn't make the team out of camp, which I think it's fair to assume that he's not going to presently in April, I still think that the Grand Rapids viewership might spike a little bit early on if he doesn't.
Another thing to consider, too, is he's 19 years old. So even though his ELC began this year, it will slide. I do believe, I'll double check on that right now as I'm talking to you, but I'm pretty sure that was, if you're 18 or 19 years old and you play less than 9 games in the NHL, your ELC can slide. And yeah, he is slide eligible. So, but next year he'll turn 20. So I think this is the only year he's eligible for a slide. So next year his the clock will be ticking on him and his contract. So you have 3 more years of Amadeus Lombardi development for him to make the NHL. But I'm telling you, it might be as soon as next year with the way he has been. I mean, I think there'll be an adjustment period. I got to try and keep myself calm here, but this kid is a hype factory. I'm so excited.
He is. He had a heck of a year.
Scotty, this kind of leads us into our next topic as well. The Red Wings have not had a 100-point score since 1996 with Sergei Fedorov. This year, you can't even count on one hand how many 100-point scores there were in the NHL. There were so many. This year's scoring was up ridiculously. It felt like every single team the Red Wings have played down the stretch here has had at least one 100-point score on it. But the Red Wings themselves, not since 1996. Amadeus Lombardi just had a 100-point year in the OHL. Now, that's a leap. That's a stretch, but it is a transition into the topic at hand. Do the Red Wings have a 100-point score on their team, in their system, or do they not yet exist? That is my question for you.
It's it's a heck of a question. I mean, we talk about the importance, I guess, of the 100-point score, but when you find out, that they haven't hit that threshold since the mid-90s, and they've done a lot of winning since their last 100-point score. Like, if you have crazy good depth, which all of those Cup teams since the last 100-point score did, then obviously you can overcome that a little bit by having incredible talent down there on your third line, right? And I believe Datsuk had back-to-back years of 97 points there in 07, 08. So just kind of on the outside, a few points away from the 100-point season for him there around that Cup as well. But my biggest thing has always been not necessarily that they need 100% a 100-point score. They need more pure goal scoring, and that will lead to a rise in points from everyone else. So when I think about who the next 100-point scorer is in the Wings organization, or if that person is here, I think I really only have 2 different routes, and one is they're not in the organization, and whether that's it's I don't know, it's going to happen within the next decade, and that player just isn't in the organization yet, and they're going to draft them or trade for them or sign them or develop them or whatever, or if that's not my answer, it's either that or there's a slim chance that on a legitimate, good, deep Stanley Cup caliber roster, Dylan Larkin can add 15 to 18 points to his point total. And it's not going to come via a huge spike in goal scoring, but if you give him, we're seeing what he's done with a non-playoff roster for basically his entire career. And my thought process is, if you're making me pick someone in the organization, and I can't just say they're not in the org yet, then I think the closest thing we have to a feasible answer there is Dylan Larkin on a team that's actually like loaded or is really good and is an actual legitimate cup contender, maybe finds 15 more assists in a season.
Yeah, I think that's if you want to play devil's advocate, which I think is fair to do in this situation, because if I'm being cold and I'm being blunt, much like you, I would agree that this team doesn't have it right now. At least not that we can feasibly see. Like, we can't pinpoint a guy and like, that's the guy. He'll be it. We don't have that. The Red Wings do not have that right now. But like you, I could see it in reality with Dylan Larkin on the cusp of maybe having 80 points, depending on whether or not he plays this year. If the team around him gets better, I agree. I think he could add 20 points to his career high point total, but you would have to surround him with cup contender talent, which frankly does not exist on this roster right now.
Sure.
Now, when it comes to guys in the system, if there's anyone I think could be that guy, well, man, you're just going to have to wait to find out until after I talk to you about game time.
Wow. That was a pro move.
That's cold. Well, Scotty, I talked about it to you guys yesterday. If you've ever used an app we shall not name, and you go to buy a ticket, much like I have many times, and you think you're getting a deal until you see all of the fees. Let's say you're a Swiftie and you want to get that Taylor Swift ticket. And all of a sudden it's like thousands of dollars and it's got $1,000 more in fees. Well, maybe you should have used Game Time. Game Time is the place for last-minute ticket deals. Forget planning months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and even hockey, of course. The Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price if you find tickets in the same section and row for less. Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. It's the fastest growing app in the country for a reason. Get images of your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Buy tickets in a matter of seconds. Tap 2 taps and you're set. Tickets are sent directly to your phone, so you never have to dig through your email. Snag those tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use Locked On NHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem Locked On NHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest priced, guaranteed. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty, I teased it before the break. Was master of a tease, if you ask me. Of the players in the depth chart that could reach 100 points without just doing the cop-out answer of saying no, if you force me to say one guy, it's going to have to be Amadeus Lombardi.
Are you just going to lean into it? Okay.
Just gonna lean into it. Let's go. No, but listen, Elmer Soderblom is a great player. I think that he has a future as a solid NHL future. I think Cross Hannes has an NHL future. I think Carter Mazur has an NHL future. Have I seen anything out of these guys that says, I think Marco Kasper is your bona fide number 2 center? Have I seen anything out of these guys that screams to me this is going to lead to 100 points at the NHL level? No. But we have seen Amadeus Lombardi, granted again, at the OHL level, not a professional league, reach 100 points this year. Was it an anomaly? Maybe. We don't know yet. He hasn't played a single AHL hockey game, but we've seen him produce at high volumes in a league right now. He is quite literally, in my opinion, the only one I could see maybe doing it, but you have to take that with a grain of salt. And It's funny. The first 2 segments I was pumping I was pumping him up, and now I'm pumping the brakes, right? But if you're talking reality, it feels like I talk about jumping the shark in the first 2 segments, talking about how he could make the NHL roster. I think it's really jumping the shark to assume that he'll make 100 points. But if you're going to force me, that's what we're talking about, forcing me to say somebody in the roster who could maybe, or the depth chart that could maybe hit 100 points, the only one I could see it doing would be Amadeus Lombardi right now.
Yeah. The remembering, what level he is at. Like, there's nothing that says that that if Marco Kasper played in the O, that he wouldn't put up crazy production. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, exactly.
So you definitely got to take that into consideration. But just like style of play, I think matters. Like, Marco Kasper is going to, I think, be a phenomenal top 6 forward at the NHL level. And I think he's going to provide this team a lot of good moments for hopefully the next, 6 to 10 years at least. But he's very much all around and like gives you a lot of value defensively and isn't going to necessarily have like that 40-50 goal like score potential, whatever. So
he's much more a playmaker than he is a goal scorer.
Right. Playmaker and solid defender and like that kind of two-way forward type of thing. So yeah, I think just looking at play style, I mean, again, like you've at least seen that. And again, my opinion, if you're just asking me, my opinion is it's that player is just not in the organization right now. But
I'm with you.
I guess if you're forcing to pick a non-NHL player, like if we're really kind of like nitpicking, it's like you have to pick someone and they have to be a prospect. I guess that the person with the highest odds would probably be him. But yeah, I think that's if you're asking me to rank the likelihood of all the people above him, he would be like 3rd or 4th highest odds in the organization, and 1 would be not in the organization for me.
Yes, and that's exactly the point I'm trying to make here is the answer to this is there's nobody in their organization right now who can accomplish that. But that's not fun. That's not fun podcasting, right? So we play devil's advocate, and if you're going to say anyone on this current roster that could do it, it would be Larkin, with the stipulation of being surrounded by NHL talent. If you want to play devil's advocate for somebody in the organization at the depth level who could possibly do it, it would be, if you had to pick one, I would again say Amadeus Lombardi, right? Like That's what we're doing. Devil's advocate. We don't seriously think with our heart of hearts that these guys are going to get 100 points, but they're the most likely candidate. At least in my opinion, these 2 guys are the most likely candidates to do it at the NHL level at this moment.
Sure. Yeah. Really quick, I do have a question for you. It's kind of like mini trivia. 93-94 Red Wings. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
3 players had 82 or more points. You want to take a stab at it?
In 93-94?
93-94, 3 players had 82 or more points.
Well, Yzerman
had 82 in 58 games.
Didn't even play a full season.
Absurd.
Sergei Fedorov
had 120 points. He was 4 goals away from a 60-60 season.
That's crazy. And
the last one is the reason I asked. 93 points in his comfortably the best year of his career.
Wait. Nick Lidstrom?
No, unfortunately.
Damn.
Lidstrom he was 23 years old and had 56 in 60. Or no, he played a full season. He had 56 points. 93 points in 82 games from Ray Shepherd.
Wow.
I
never would have gotten that. That's a name I have not heard in a long time. That's why I asked.
Because like every other year of his career, like he's consistently putting up like 47, 62, 66, 60, 46. Like he was very, very consistently in that high 40s to low 60s range his entire career. And then for one beautiful season in 1993, 1994, he explodes for almost 100 points. Just crazy.
Hey, Scotty, it's 29 minutes, 50 seconds into the episode, and the Red Wings are about to play their final game of the season against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Why don't we
Yeah.
do a preview?
Yeah, they are really good, and you have a lot of injuries, and
But
it's in Tampa.
they sent Taro Hirose and Danny O'Regan back down to the Grand Rapids Griffins. So does that mean that Dylan Larkin will play in game number 82?
I hope so, because I want him to hit
80.
at least have a chance of hitting a point a game.
Well, he is a point a game right now, 79 and 79.
Yeah. Well, yeah, true. I want him to cross 80. I
There you
guess
go.
is what I should have said. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I mean,
So,
listen, this
we'll
is.
see.
Do the Tampa Bay Lightning, are they fighting for seeding still going into this last game of the season? What's the point total at there? Let me take a quick peek.
Let's see.
No, they're nowhere close. Okay, so they're locked in at the third seed in the Atlantic Division.
Yeah.
Neither team.
Yeah.
So I bet you Tampa Bay doesn't even field their best players. I bet you, much like Toronto, is going to sit
But a
their
lot of
best
Wings
players.
fans want to lose this game and have some other people win so that you significantly improve your lottery odds pretty much overnight, which, I mean, can't blame anybody for that.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be one of those games where I'm going to watch it, and regardless of the outcome, I'm going to come on here and talk positively, because if you lose, unless you lose in an embarrassing fashion against Tampa Bay's
Which
like
is
third
possible.
stringers, which is possible, because I imagine they're going to be benching. If you see Vasilevsky, I'll be surprised. If you see Stamkos, I'll be surprised.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these players, their season, even though there's one game left, is over. Their seeding is locked. So if the Red Wings lose and they improve their draft position, that's the topic. If the Red Wings win and they get to a 500-point percentage for the first time in a decade, that's the topic.
Right.
So, I mean, it feels like tomorrow.
In our world, we got
is
a good story either way.
Boom. So I guess that's a preview for what we're going to talk about in tomorrow's game. If they win, it's a 500-point percentage. If they lose, draft position, baby, because that's all it's about right now. Tampa Bay Lightning, I don't think are going to throw out their best players. I don't think, well, the Wings really aren't going to throw out their best players because all their best players are hurt. So we'll see.
We'll see.
Season's at an end, buddy. Season's at
Another one into the belt.
Yep. That's 2 complete seasons for us. Not yet. One more game.
One more game. Yeah, anything can happen. But yeah, one more game, and then
what does that mean?
Well, I mean, you never know, man. A meteor could hit the Metro Detroit area.
Well, at least I won't have to pay my student loans off. Scotty, any final thoughts?
I do not have to worry about that.
I got a degree. You didn't. We're both hosting the same podcast. Did college really matter?
Real.
All right. Scotty, any final thoughts? Nice sip. That was loud as hell.
We ball.
All right. We'll be back with a new episode tomorrow, recapping the game. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.
Every day.